Welcome back to another episode of Have You Heard, a social media podcast brought to you by The Social Shepherds. I'm today joined with Lucy, who's our senior influencer manager, and we're going to be talking all things influencer, how much they cost, who's pricing at ridiculous amounts. There's always, I'm sure fees that you get back, which are absolutely insane. But I wanted to start with you on, I guess, giving everyone like an overview of like an expectation. Naturally, I think people charge all different types of ranges, but I guess it'd be good to give people maybe some degree of expectation. What comes across, in your inbox of sort of fees at different ranges of influencers and types of talent.
Sure.
Good stuff.
So I guess there's a whole different type of influencer that you can work with, all the way from your nanos, all the way up to your megas and celebrities and everything like that. And I think it's really important to caveat, it's very much dependent on the brief, their own experience, what the expected results we could get from working with them, engagement rate, how many deliverables you're asking of them, and so on and so forth. But I mean, if we look at like nano influencers, for example, so they're typically people with up to 10K followers. And, you can be charging anywhere from around like £50 for a post with them, like a single image post on Instagram. But then you go all the way up to like your mega celebrity type influencers. And I mean, it's like tens of thousands. They could be charging hundreds of thousands, depending on who they are, really. It completely varies. But that's why it's really important for us. Like, it's our job to make sure, we know exactly what we're asking of those people, and we're like looking at them from like a vetting perspective. Like, we always really thoroughly vet all of our influencers. Like, are they a good brand fit? Have they got any collaborations with anyone who is maybe a competitor of like one of our clients that we're trying to work with or anything, to then like go away and like help to kind of negotiate on those rates and everything.
How do you think influencers and agents themselves come up with like the pricing model?
I'd love to know.
Do you think because obviously there is such a variation, some people are more reasonable, some people come across and you're like, that's way overinflated about any value that you're going to be able to drive in a sense. But how do you think that they do it? I guess, like you said, it is partially to do with the deliverables, partially to do with their reach and relevancy within
exactly
as well.
I've never kind of sat that side of things of like actually representing talent, and that's not anything that we necessarily do here. But I guess I'm expecting that they're looking at kind of like what on average they're typically able to charge. They'll work closely with certain brands as well, like particularly where they're like direct response campaigns or quite performance-driven campaigns, like if they've been able to generate sales, particularly where there's influencers who do kind of affiliate marketing as well alongside of it, and like how much revenue they are able to drive for a particular cost and everything like that. But equally, I think those agents or those influencers themselves are also kind of looking at those emails, that whether we send them or when they get our briefs and everything, to kind of go, is this a good brand fit for me, to try and like come up with that fee, I guess. But I mean, there are definitely times we've like had responses and I just think like, how has that figure come about? And it's sometimes, or I say sometimes, a lot of the time it's a matter of like it's who goes first, like who jumps first. Like we'll get emails kind of saying, what's your budget for this? But we always try and kind of go, could you let us know, like based on these deliverables, like what your typical rate would be for something like this? Because it can be quite hard to know, whether to go in with that particular budget. And we will always try and do that as like fairly as possible. Like if we think it's a fair point to try and kind of give them a guideline of budget and everything. And again, like we've definitely had it in the past where, particularly when we've been reaching out for a big awareness campaign and we're trying to get like a celebrity on board, and those kind of agents will always just kind of say to you, what's your budget for this? And you can give them a rough idea. And it's really funny, some of the responses you get where they're just like, nope, that's nowhere near the sort of amount we'd be able to
could have just
do
told
for
me
something
in
like
the
this.
first place,
I know, and
yeah.
you're always like, oh, for goodness sake. But then like, well, what is that? What would that necessarily look like? I do think you have to expect, like, for those kind of celebrity, mega macro type influencers, you know, you do need a very healthy budget of several tens of thousands of pounds to try and kind of
Would you call that more
to
like
work
your
with them.
TV, not
Yeah,
like reality stars, but like your more people that are like
yeah, definitely.
known for something and on
Exactly.
TV and have that.
Exactly. Like if they've got kind of a real presence, like in the public eye and everything, like, yeah, those are the kinds of people we typically would look to work with for those kinds of campaigns, I
makes
guess.
sense.
Yeah.
In a dream world, how would you want influencers to charge? Like, how would you want them to charge? Like purely on like more performance metrics and like a cost per reach, cost per acquisition? Like what in your eyes and
so
client's eyes, what would that look like?
yes, I mean, what we're really trying to implement at the moment as well is kind of when we go and negotiate on rates with influencers is actually kind of bringing it back to what is the core objective of the campaign. So if it's an awareness campaign, reach is most likely going to be your core objective. And you know, we'll you know, gauge kind of like what is that particular influencer's like average reach, particularly on like branded content as well. Like what are they typically getting for that? And dependent on the fee that they've given us for that so far, we can then take a look at like what the cost per reach might then necessarily be to be able to then go away and like negotiate back with them. So we're really trying to take more of a kind of data-driven, performance-led approach to our negotiations as opposed to simply kind of just accepting that's someone's fee. Not that we necessarily have done that, but as in, you know, it's really key because especially for like a lot of our clients, like they will put a lot of budget behind this activity, and it's our job to make sure we're showing like what return they're getting for putting that much budget into a campaign like that. And yes, a lot of the time, you know, several of our campaigns, awareness is one of our core objectives. So from that basis, it's really key that we're kind of negotiating the absolute best rate possible for them. So doing it on like a cost per rate basis is kind of one of the better ways of being able to make sure we're delivering the very best for our clients, I would say.
And I guess from the influencer side, they're somewhat putting their money where their mouth is as well about what they can deliver. They're giving some degree of guarantee on a cost per reach.
Exactly.
Basis that they're going to be able to deliver what you're actually looking to achieve, and is going to be good for
and again,
client.
like that's our job as well, to work with those influencers to make sure like we're briefing them really well and like we're really guiding them with the content that they're ultimately producing. Like if they're saying that their average reach is like 50k per post, we want to make sure we're getting that kind of reach as well with the collaboration we do with them. So it's important that, you know, the content that's produced for that has as much creative freedom as possible, because also it's a matter of making sure that for that influencer, like we're working with them because they already know how to create a community with their audience. They already know how to engage their audience. We don't want them delivering content that's ultimately going to be like out of the blue for their audience to see. It's always really obvious when you see something like that. And it's just something just feels really out of place on their feed, and you just know they have not had the creative freedom over that content. So yeah, it's very much our job to really work with them to make sure we are driving kind of real performance behind all of their content as well.
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Our videographer, Rob, behind the camera, he wants to create this travel account. He wants to become an influencer. Let's say he's grown himself to 100,000 followers.
Okay.
He's got a really, you know, great community within the sort of travel space and outdoor space.
Love that.
Gets a brief across his table, which is, you know, let's call it a reel. He's producing like a beautifully shot reel as well as some supporting stories. If you're managing Rob, how much in the ballpark at sort of that sort of level of following, I guess, in that travel maybe space, the future, what would you be expecting for him to charge, or would you suggest he charge?
So I'm very aware, like, you know, I don't want to encourage Rob to have a career change here. I mean, look, providing you're delivering consistent good levels of reach and you're driving consistent, you know, good engagement, your community, you know, engages actively with your content and everything like that, and all the stats are looking healthy.
No fake followers, right?
No, we will be vetting you for that as well. We can see when, you know, there's been spikes in growth and everything overnight. For a reel and some stories, for someone with about 100k followers, you could be looking around like the 5k mark, to be honest. Exactly. Yeah, I know, right? But what's really key for that is you've got to have real relevance with the brand and the like brief and everything. Like, we're not just going to pick any old travel creator. Like, I'm sure you fit into a wider pool of potential people that we could collaborate with, but providing you've got genuine relevance with the brand and what we're ultimately looking to achieve, and you've proven that you have the ability to really kind of drive the results that we'd be expecting, we can look at figures of that kind of amount. But we'll see. You might want to stick to the day job. I don't know.
It's insane as well. I've got a friend that's in fitness and he's got around 60k, like really strong content, like genuinely, like really authentically, like creates content for him, you know, and is people that follow him love it for it. But he's got absolutely no idea.
Right.
He's always like, how much could I be charging? I say maybe not that type of figure, but you know, somewhat in that sort of range. And he's just absolutely shocked because he like will take products for free, only that he really believes in as well. He's not just shouting out anything just for the sake of a gift product. But it astounds me that he's, I guess, missing out. He's got a few big collaborations like that, like on a long-term basis. But yeah, I need to get him to watch this podcast and see what's actually possible.
Exactly. Have a conversation with me, for sure. But I guess like with that anyway, I think it's important to note, you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of followers to be earning a consistent revenue or income stream rather, from brand collaborations. Like, if you take it seriously and you are like genuinely good and passionate about creating great content, then you never know, like that could be something you want to explore. And like, we've worked with a lot of like nano influencers and a lot of micro influencers as well, who, you know, they can be charging between like your £50 for a post all the way up to like a couple £1,000. Like, really, again, always depends on like what we're asking of them. But it, like, there's real value still in working with those kinds of people, because a lot of the time those smaller influencers tend to have far more engaged communities, who are more likely to trust what they've got to say, as opposed to someone with 1 million followers who might be shilling out any old brand or whatever and like accepting every single brand deal that comes through their inbox. So, you know, we always say to our clients, like, you want mass awareness and reach and everything like that. And you can absolutely do that. And you can absolutely do that with your big macro influencers and everything. But there's also still value in having those micro and nano influencers involved too, because like, they're the ones who are going to assist in driving real consideration of actually purchasing your product or, you know, signing up to your services or whatever. So don't want to ever, you know, overlook that at all.
Yeah. And then also on the branded content and getting rights to be able to run ads as a part of that content that they've then posted, how much is that typically, obviously dependent on the size, but how does that get negotiated in sometimes? Are you able to negotiate that in as a part of that package, I guess, when you brief them? Or if you go, also, how much is it for this? What do you typically see, and how is it structured as well as a part of the deal?
I mean, we always try to be as fair as possible with both influencers and their agents, and try and kind of ensure all requirements for a campaign or a partnership are discussed up front. We never want to kind of send someone a contract and then there's something like, hang on, why do you need 6 months of paid media usage? Like, we haven't discussed that, and that would typically incur an additional fee or whatever. So I like to make it clear, like, we are a very fair and transparent kind of agency on that side of things. But I guess when it comes to branded content, I still think there's a bit of a way to go with it, because some people will charge like they'll literally just pluck a number out of thin air and be like, it's £50 for branded content usage. But then there's some people who'll charge like a percentage of like the overall fee. They'll need to know what the media spend is going to be as well. But I mean, it's like we had someone recently who did a TikTok for one of our clients. They were a larger micro influencer and they didn't really deliver the reach that we would have expected. And then they turned around and said it's going to be $1,000 for branded content usage. And it's like, there could be value in having that content boosted through branded content, but like the fact that we've already spent so much with you because we thought we were going to get this kind of reach with you. It's kind of like, well, we're just not, we didn't proceed with it, is all I'll say, but we maybe need to cut this, I don't know. But like, it's just, it's a bit strange. Like there doesn't seem to be kind of a typical way that both influencers and agents negotiate on that at the moment. And I think we just have to kind of ourselves like take a look at what those fees are and consider like, is it really going to be a worthwhile additional investment for that? We try to kind of get all usage right fees discussed up front regardless anyway. So sometimes we have cases where we'll partner with said influencers, get them to create all their content, but equally we know that if we then see their content, really like it and think we want to boost it through branded content, we already have the fees for that up front, rather than it being kind of like an afterthought. And we always try and encourage branded content anyway with our clients regardless, because it is a really valuable element to help utilize that content that we know that audiences really love. We know they really love like user generated style content. But yeah, it's just, it can be a bit of a tricky one to navigate, I guess.
In that example, it's a shame that like influencers aren't able to, I'm not saying all influencers by any means, but like able to support just as much as, from your side as well as booking them. Like they'd obviously we want them to be a part of that campaign and really believe in it and, be a part of it and try and help you as much as you're trying to help them in that sense of like, see success. And then ultimately the more flex, we're not expecting huge flexibility and like bend over backwards for us, but just that support where, we're going to remember that name, maybe use them in other campaigns.
Exactly.
We've had such a positive experience with them. They've delivered the results that we want. We know that they're going to be a part of that and we're going to want to work with them ongoing from there as well. Yeah. Perfect. Well, that all makes sense. And I think there's lots of considerations around fees and how we manage it. And some obviously being easier to work with, some being harder to work with, some fees that you come across which you're like, great, let's get this signed up. That seems really reasonable. And some you obviously have to push back on as well. But thank you very much for that. And for everyone watching, please do subscribe. We're posting these across YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, LinkedIn, everywhere as you'd imagine. So make sure to follow along as we'll be posting many more along as well. So see you guys soon and thank you very much.